This is a good beat. Why aren't you dancing?
Dancing is forbidden. 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 Dancing is forbidden.
So obviously I talk to a lot of Aqua Teen fans. My podcast, I try and involve the fans a lot of the show. And the vast majority of them love MCP Pants. It's their favorite villain. But when I asked them, I'm like, oh, are you familiar with MC Chris's music? A lot of them, honestly, are like, oh, not really. I didn't know that he did music or anything like that. And I assume this is something you've kind of battled with throughout your career to some extent. But first of all, do you just have any sort of general pitch to these people who love your music in Aqua Teen that haven't stepped in and listened to it outside of Aqua Teen?
Well, there's people on both sides of the fence that know my music and then find out that I'm in cartoons and love the cartoons in a new way once they find out I'm involved in them. And there are people that love the cartoons and then find out that I make music. I think because I've been underground and independent, that it's kind of, I always thought that was something that was cool, but I realized that people are more comfortable with like corporate presentation of content. So like if I had been had an MC Chris show or something like that, or I was on a label and they were presenting it to everybody in like this conventional professional way, then people would have known about it and liked it in a much bigger way than it has happened. But, I think for a lot of my career, I enjoy the size of my fame. Like, I don't know if I can handle being more famous than I am. And I like the size of it. But I mean, monetarily, it's difficult because none of the Turner cartoons were done with union agreements or SAG-AFTRA protections. So there was no residuals. So, I wished I had been smarter about it and pursued more conventional means of presenting my music to everybody so more people would find out about it. If I had to pitch it to somebody who didn't know my music, I would just say, it's a lot like what you hear on the cartoons, but it's more personal and autobiographical, but also it's more lighthearted than most rap. It's more kind of comedic, even though because I said a lot of my albums were comedy albums that they've recently been taken off streaming because there's some sort of big thing happening on streaming where comedy albums are being pulled. So now we're trying to resubmit them as hip hop albums. But I think, very simply put, I rap about Star Wars and nerdy things that you probably like. My goal as a writer was always to write about stuff that I knew about and to not put up a lot of pretense and pretend I'm something I'm not, but instead just to rap about the stuff that I was familiar with, like Star Wars and pizza and ninjas and Harry Potter and the stuff that I knew and liked. And so I have a very, small but respectable following. When I was an Adult Swim fan before Adult Swim, when it was just Space Ghost, I liked that Space Ghost was this cult thing that you didn't know about. And it was on, on Sundays at like 12 a.m. or 3 a.m. or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And it was like hard to find and only a small amount of people like that. I thought that was very cool, but I think that was more of like my younger version of myself, not realizing that like, the more people you can get to hear your music, the better, especially mine, because it has this message of, just loving who you are, no matter who you are, and to, take pride in yourself. I was telling people to like be okay with being a nerd before Lord of the Rings or Spider-Man kind of made everybody nerds.
Right.
And I think that affected a whole generation of people who went on to make some really cool stuff. And I find out every day that like fans of mine have gone on to become awesome creators in their own respect.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I don't know if there's a specific song or album you would suggest somebody to check you out for the first time outside of Aqua Teen's music.
I think my best album is MC Chris is Dead, which is like has this zombie theme and has some of my best songs on it. But I put out albums. I've been doing this for about 20 years. And I put out albums every year, and they all have skits that feature a lot of really funny people. And but MC Chris is Dead is pretty much known as my like best album. And so I would say go check that out. And people like the songs Pizza Butt and Hoodie Ninja a lot. Hoodie Ninja was featured in a Honda national campaign. There have been some national conventional things that have happened with me. But yeah, so I have some bangers in there.
Right on. So here's a question that I really had was, how did the process of writing I Want Candy work? Did Matt and Dave write it with you? Did they just give you some plot points and let you run free on it? How did that go about?
They give me plot points and they'll say they'll want the first verse to be like this sweet sounding thing. There's actually a song by Little Bow Wow, I think called I Want Candy, that came out right at the time of like 2002 or so. And so I think they were parodying that. I had auditioned for multiple Aqua Teen roles ever since I moved to Atlanta. And, you know, I was in lots of different pilots, auditioned for The Leprechauns and for Moth Monster Man. And I did a lot of different things. But nothing ever clicked. And so I think they just figured like, okay, he's not really fitting the writing that we're coming up with. Let's write something specifically for him. And because I was a staff member at C-Lab, and eventually I moved over to Williamstree and I left C-Lab. And, you know, so I was just always around. And once I became like somebody who was just like a fixture in the office, they tried to find stuff for me. When I was at C-Lab, they had, you know, told me they had written something for me. And I don't believe I had to audition for it. I think it was just written for me. And I came up with a voice for them. And then they told me what the, you know, what the premise of the song was. The first half would be very sweet and the second half would be very threatening. And then eventually by the end of the song, I would just reveal my plot. And it would just be a part of the song. So
Gotcha.
Which would make kind of a bad villain.
Like, how did you guys get the beats for that one? Was that your responsibility to find the beats for it, or did they have something?
Schoolie D came up with something, and he made the theme. But the original theme for I Want Candy is by Schoolie D.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome. This is kind of arbitrary, but would you happen to remember if the song was written before or after the episode was like recorded?
I don't recall that.
Sure.
I think I had written the song. I think they showed me the script and then told me what they needed the song to be, and then I wrote the song, and I think I did the recording all at once.
Gotcha. Okay, because I noticed it's either in MCP Pants or Super Sirloin where Meatwad says some lyrics from the song that aren't actually in the song if you listen to the full song. Yeah. So I was just kind of wondering, how that came about timeline-wise.
Yeah, no, with something specific like that, they never asked me to incorporate that line.
Okay.
And then for like the movie Instanoflex, I didn't write any of that. I was just doing what they had written ahead of time. But for the other reincarnations of MCP Pants, where there got to be a song, and there got to be a song on the Aquadonk side pieces, they basically just told me what they wanted, and I would, just kind of make it, fill the order.
Right on. Okay. So my question for you now is, while writing and recording I Want Candy, did you imagine that you would be performing that song for the next 20 years, that like it would be as big of a hit as it was?
No. Any of the things that I've done, like with Fetsvet, I say Fetsvet is the best gateway song for me. I forgot to bring that up, but yeah. Sure. Like Fetsvet, I'm still performing, and I talk about it every night during my tour now, where I'm like, I wrote this song in 1999. It's 23 years old. It's older than some people in this room. And with I Want Candy as well, too, it's like, you don't know what's going to happen with anything when you make it. But then it has a life of its own, and the Fetsvet is taking me to like all different kinds of places and experiences, from Adult Swim to Skywalker Ranch to working with Kevin Smith. You just have no idea what's going to come of these things. And it's weird to me that Aqua Teen has, when the first time I toured in 2005, I saw that Aqua Teen held a special place in the hearts of like young people across the country, and in a way that I related to like the Ramones or something that happened before them in earlier generations. Like, just it wasn't just like something that they were consuming. It was something meaningful that they were consuming. And I always attributed that to being like Aqua Teen came on after 9/11. And because Aqua Teen premiered 1 week before 9/11, that there's this whole generation of people that were watching Adult Swim that didn't really want to deal with anything, and then had all this brand new content to kind of latch onto. And so the connection was like stronger than something that might have happened down the road. Although, huge things like Rick and Morty and Futurama and Family Guy, those people like connected with those things as well. A really big way, much bigger than Aqua Teen. But I think that in the beginning, the connection that was made between the Aqua Teen shows and just those kids watching the shows in the first when it first ran, it's almost like they went through Vietnam together, and so they're just forever linked because of that. And so it just means so much to them. But yeah, I perform I Want Candy during my tour every night, and I say to people, this is my life now. And it's a joke, but I've always said to people when they say, like, do you get annoyed doing Fets Vet or I Want Candy? I'm like, I'm glad that there's something that connects with people. And it's my pleasure to relive that moment and forget about what we're going through currently or whatever the situation may be. And like, let's pretend it's the early aughts again, even though that too wasn't a great time. But I think that we found each other in that time period was what was great about it.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Here's my last kind of Aqua Teen question. And I'm not 100% sure how to articulate this one, but have you ever thought of doing additional MCP Pants songs, either like by yourself going rogue and just doing them, or maybe hitting up Matt and Dave, just like obviously without an episode?
I've never asked them to make an album, but it's weird to me. Adult Swim seemed to have a conflicted opinion or relationship with me, where they were very into hip hop and concerts and making albums, and Aqua Teen. But for some reason, they never really wanted to do a full MCP Pants project. But I always attribute to like it's got to come from Matt and Dave. Like it's got to be their idea to do it. Like the Aquadonk Side Pieces thing, they never would have made a new MCP Pants short had they not been like, let's revisit this character. And they didn't revisit it for like 8 years at least. And so I think with the changing of the guard in Adult Swim from Mike Lazo to Mike Lean, then I think that a lot of things that worked in the past that proved to have longevity were brought back because it was really never fully understood why it was taken away. And but yeah, I think it would have to come from Matt and Dave, that they'd have to say, we want to do this thing. I wouldn't do it just because I wouldn't own it and I wouldn't profit as much from it. And it's always better to just make MC Chris stuff. But MC Chris is like basically MCP Pants. It's the same. It sounds exactly the same.
Right.
It's, the same writer, the same performer. It's like basically there's 15 MCP Pants albums out there, or 18. And, there's tons of content. When someone discovers me for the first time, they have a lot of work to do because there's so much stuff that I've made.
Right.
But I think if Matt and David said, we want to make this album, we want to make music videos, and we want to do a tour, I would be like so happy about it and would love to do it. And I think fans would love it too. It would be great to open up for Death Clock or something like that. And but I feel like, I may have ruffled Adult Swim's feathers because I had this side hustle in the beginning of the game, and the side hustle being MC Chris. And I think they just didn't want me to, be so ambitious. If you actually worked there, they didn't want you to really do anything else. They just wanted you to work there. But they loved celebrities, so they loved bringing in people from the outside and bringing them in. But if you became a celebrity and you were from there, then I think that may have left not a great taste in their mouth. So, but it's hard for me to say why it never happened or what the deal is. But definitely, I feel like the Aquadonk Side Pieces was like a huge success, and I sounded great. It sounded exactly the same, like no time had passed at all. And So, would love to continue that and keep doing it. But if nothing ever happened again, I would not be surprised at all.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's still nice though that you and at least Dave, I know, have been on good terms. Because you mentioned ruffling Adult Swim's feathers, but I know that Dave has always gotten you involved with Aqua Teen.
Dave's always very supportive, and Matt too. When we did the Aqua side pieces, I made sure that I was very thankful and that I love them so much for including me and apologized if I had ever seemed bigger than my britches or too big for my britches. Question, but then they just turned it around and said, no, I should have been blah, 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 blah. And so it was kind of like one of those things where it's just like a misunderstanding that gets too much time under it. And, but yeah, no, I think that everything's cool with Dave and Matt and I. I think they had made so many Aqua Teen episodes and they just didn't want to revisit characters too many times. They wanted to work with new, and like that's what that was a thrill for them, was to work with new people, new famous people. And, I'm famous because of these shows, which is like the one way that I'm weird. I was like a staff member who got cast in the show, got to be in it like 7 or 8 times. And then it really connected with the audience. But that didn't really happen anywhere else. Nobody else who was staffed and who was an animator was doing these things. So I think it was a weird thing. Had I been like more famous than I am and had been in TV shows, and I would seem more attractive to them, I think. But I think that's just the way that that's like their Space Ghost mindset, is they wanted to bring in celebrities because that's how you bring attention to your product. You don't really want to bring in something that you created because you feel like that's played out.
So you're a month into your tour so far. I looked at the dates. You're a little bit over half over with the tour, it looks like.
Yeah.
How has it been going? And it seems like I've just seen so much love that you've been getting, and you post like pictures of people who are like, oh, this guy noticed me, this woman noticed me at FedEx and all this stuff. It just seems like it's been crazy.
Yeah, it's very weird to re-enter the world. I live in Los Angeles where it's very, life is very isolated and you don't really see people. Before that, I lived in New York where I would bump into people and see them on the train and they would know who I was. And but then the masks came on and people stopped recognizing me, and I had personal things going on in my life that made it difficult to focus on my career. And, but then the tour, I decided around October or November that like, I felt like COVID was going away, and that if I was going to do a tour next summer, I'm a single dad, my child wouldn't be in school, and that would be like the one time I could go out, that I would have to book it as soon as possible because people would be fighting over these dates. So I ended up booking this tour in 2 weeks in November. And I booked every day that I could. And without even thinking about like, can you do this? I just know I want to finish the 15-day run where I did 50 shows back to back with no days off for 2 weeks. And it was very, very difficult. But being able to come back out and see the fans again, it's been crazy. There have been sold out shows and so much enthusiasm, so much emotion, people coming up to me at the end of the night crying, and an extraordinary connection has been made between my fans and I. And it's advertised as the last tour because I don't really know how I'm touring with my son right now. He's right behind me. I don't know how I can continue to do this and take care of him at the same time, although he's had a great time and we've had a lot of fun doing these shows. But the fans have been, just really enthusiastic. They've been buying more merch than I've ever experienced in my life. It's as if we all were frozen for 2 years. We just became unfrozen, and we want to just do the things that we used to do beforehand, but now with even more abandon, we want, we just want to buy everything on the merch table, and we want to get photos, and we want to, sign everything that I can sign as if I really going away. I think there'll still be shows after this, and maybe even tours or opening slots. I don't know exactly. I'll know in the upcoming months what my plan is.
Yeah.
I really like to be more stationary in LA, but I won't deny that I love to perform for the audience, and that I love to see them again. I love to connect with them, and I love doing things in a live way. I've always loved improv and theater, and that's a big part of who I am. It would be difficult to be like stuck in an office and never seeing fans again. But if by chance I was stuck in an office, it would be hopefully to make some new content that would only invigorate the MC Chris side of my life. So I would think it would come back again, but by chance it doesn't. I'm just focusing on the fans and being really appreciative of them and the good times that we've had over the past 15 years of touring.
Right on. You mentioned your son being with you, and from footage I've seen, he's on the stage with you. I saw him in a video with a lightsaber. Was he nervous to do that initially, or?
No, I don't want him there. I mean, I not that I don't love being with him. I love being with him, and I love him being on stage. But you never see rappers with their kids on stage. But what I found out over the tour is that I'm most comfortable with him being as close to me as he can be. I don't like putting him off in a green room or something where I can't see him, and I don't have any help or any staff to watch him. And even if I did, I think he'd want to be on stage. It's very similar to how I used to be when I was his age. I wanted to be on stage. I wanted to be performing. I wanted to be a part of things. I wanted to be a part of the show. I love going to work with my dad. So I just remember how I felt when I was his age, and he's really fearless. He really just wants to get up there and have a great time and tell jokes and be like his dad. And I think it's a very normal thing for him. And I'm very protective of him. And that's the only reason I don't want him to be there, is because I don't want anything to happen to him.
Right.
But we've been out for a month and nothing's happened to him. I've taken really great care of him, and he's been okay. And everybody loves to see him, and they love to see me with him. And I think it's just kind of where I'm at right now in my life, that I didn't really have any other options but to do that. But I think that he's having a great time, and I love him being with me. And so we're very happy to be touring.
Yeah,
We've gotten into the groove of it, and we got our routines down, and we know how each day goes. And he's enjoying all the McDonald's and amusement parks and all the fun stuff that we do. And I enjoy knowing that he's okay and safe, and that's what I like.
Yeah, I think that's going to be like a great memory for him, because for me growing up, my dad was in a country cover band around the northeastern Illinois area, and I would go with him to his shows, so I have like tons of great memories. So I can only imagine, obviously you're a much bigger act than my dad was. You're going on a national tour, so that's just going to be some awesome memories, I think, for him.
I think it's really cool for him to, we've been to like the Lincoln Memorial, we've been to Texas and Florida and DC, and I love, I've been on tour so many times, it's all kind of like blasé for me, or just run of the mill. I've seen everything a million times, but now I can be like, look out the window, and I love hearing him say, whoa, oh my gosh, look at that.
Yeah.
It really makes it a lot more thrilling than I'm used to. I like him being close, and I like him being with me, and I think he gets to see the whole country, which is I mean, when I was a kid, I only got to see Illinois and Indiana, and I'm very flat, boring places. So, but time will tell the tale, like what he thinks about all this when he's older. But I often encourage him to like take a break, and like you can sit on the side, just look at your iPad or something, and he just does not want to do that.
He's taking the opportunity to be in front of a crowd, I suppose.
I think you feel the energy of a crowd, and it's very alluring and addictive, and the rush of adrenaline is probably something he can't deny. And so I think he's just he may be just born for this.
Right? Yeah. So, like I said, you're about halfway through your tour. You still have a few East Coast states, I know, in New York, and I think a Pennsylvania date, and then you hit the Midwest, and then you're on to the West Coast, and your tour ends in LA. And do you have any like big plans for this show? For example, I know that Jonah Ray is doing his "You Can't Call Me Al" show there with you.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Are Crunkwitch going to be there as well, or is that just Jonah Ray?
Crunkwitch will not be at that last show. It's like that's a week after the main bulk of the show. The tour has ended, so they won't be there. But I've never performed with Jonah before. And, I think call it a hunch, but we're probably fans of each other's work, and so that'll be cool to see him. When I came to LA, I think it was called Nerd Melt, was just kind of coming to an end. So his whole like run in LA was shifting into other things like MST3K, and so it's like I never really got to see what kind of world he had set up in this back of this comic book store. But it'll be nice to meet him and to play with him. And we did a show already in Anaheim, and it was one of my most well-attended shows of tour. And just the vibe with all these shows has been like, you know, there's just so much love, and you know, everyone's really excited to do this again and to do these songs again. These songs mean so much to these people, and so I'm so glad that the show got set up and that we could do it again, because there's lots of people that didn't know I was touring because I didn't make a sponsored ad until like halfway through the tour, and I'm just trying to resist Facebook as best I can. But you know, I'm excited for this show. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll be really excited just to be home. Right.
Yeah. You'll have some time off before that one to kind of relax a little bit.
Very excited about it. And then we do like Dragon Con in Atlanta a couple weeks later, and then I have nothing booked all fall. So we'll see what happens. You know, for right now, these are the last shows, and you know, I'll be really excited to play this last one, especially with Jonah and his band. I can't wait to hear what they do.